Welcome to the weigh-in presented by FanDuel. My name is Marino, and we have a blockbuster event this weekend. It's UFC 285. Some friends are going to join me to break down the biggest fights, dish out best bets, and build a parlay. It's all going down Saturday at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Prelims are at 8 p.m. Eastern, with the main card at 10 p.m. Eastern on pay-per-view. Jon Jones will return to the octagon to face off against Ciryl Gane with the heavyweight championship on the line. And FanDuel wants you to get in on the action. Right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Bet on who will win, how they'll win, when the fight will end, and so much more exclusively on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. We bring in Action Network senior writer Sean Zerillo and former MMA fighter and Action MMA analyst Billy Ward. Guys, we're going to have you share your best bets later in the show. But first, the women's flyweight title. Valentina Shevchenko is the favorite, facing Alexa Grasso, who's coming off a 4-fight win streak. Zerillo, we'll start with you. What are you looking at in this match?
Yeah, I think this fight will be more competitive than the odds suggest. I like the over 3.5 rounds as my favorite bet. You can get that at even money at FanDuel. Typically, women's flyweight bouts go to a decision around 60% of the time. So you would expect the average odds to be around minus 150. For that, you're getting as high as about plus 140. I'm taking the over 3.5, essentially getting the odds I think you would get for the full fight. And we're getting the final 7.5 minutes for free. Valentina, the biggest advantage here for her is the grappling. If she takes this fight down, I think she can get a finish on the mat, but I do think Alexa Grasso has improved her defensive grappling, knows how to stay safe, get to the next round where she can start back on the feet. On the feet, I don't think either fighter has a particularly big chance of landing a standing knockout. Going to be a relatively low tempo striking match. Valentina prefers the counter. Neither has particularly big power. So if Valentina gets the fight to the ground, I think we see a finish potentially. Otherwise, I think the chances are relatively average relative to this division. So over 3.5 rounds plus money, my favorite bet on the women's flyweight bout.
How about you, Billy?
Yeah, I think Sean really hit the nail on the head with most of the analysis. I'm betting it slightly differently. One of my favorite ways to bet MMA on FanDuel, they offer split round betting options. So you can get Shevchenko in rounds 4, rounds 5, or by decision. Bet wins if any of those hits at plus 120. And, I think this one's going to be a longer fight in the same way that Sean does. But we're getting a minus 800 favorite at plus 120 if it goes at least halfway. So that just seems like a steal. Really love having those options with multiple rounds on FanDuel instead of trying to call your shots exactly. So, yep, I'm with him exactly. Think it'll be closer than, a minus 800 favorite seems like, but still one that Shevchenko eventually wins either late or by decision.
Yeah, it's hard to see a different outcome than Shevchenko actually winning in the end. But next up, it's Grind and Find, where we talk favorite underdogs of the night. Zerillo, what do you have there?
Go with Jessica Penne at plus 245. I think this is another fight where the striking is going to be competitive, but Jessica Penne has some big physical advantages. She's 4 inches taller. She has a 6-inch reach advantage. I do think, again, the favorite has the grappling upside, and typically you see the fighter who is favored has the grappling upside in their fights. But I think Jessica Penne has the cardio advantage as well. So if she's able to survive the first round, first 7.5 minutes, get this fight to the second half and down the stretch, I think she takes over. Penne pre-fight on the money line by decision. I think those are both solid bets around plus 250 and plus 400 respectively. And then on top of that, live after round 1, I'm going to look to add more on her side as well. If she gets taken down, manages to stay safe, but loses the round, you might see that money line float up closer to plus 350, denies a takedown in the second round, and then starts to take over. So Jessica Penne, I think super undervalued for Saturday night.
All right, Billy, your favorite underdog?
Yeah, real quick to Sean's point, that's also a fight that's very likely to end in a decision. I mean, you can get significant plus money on one that goes to the decision. You've also got the equity of, bad judging come in that might save you even if you actually made a bad read. So really like that point from Zerillo. I am looking at Esteban Ribovic. He's plus 210, fighting Loic Radzhabov, and I'm probably butchering that name, which is because both of these men are making their UFC debut. Radzhabov fought a bit in PFL, but he was 4-4-1 in a lesser league. Ribovic is 11-0 as a professional. Pretty impressive knockout in his Contender Series debut, but is plus 210. It's not a fight where I'm super confident in the skill set of either guys, but when we've got, what could be a coin flip based on limited information, but one of those sides is priced north of plus 200, I'll take it. So I'd take that one down to about plus 200.
Very good point. Now, you just heard the guys' favorite underdog plays for UFC 285. Now to their favorite fight of the night. This is Mateusz Gamrot, favorite against Jalen Turner. Zerillo, what caught your eye about this one?
I think the most interesting aspect is the fact that Gamrot is the same price here that he was in his last fight against Beneil Dariush, who's probably going to end up fighting for the lightweight title at some point. I thought Gamrot was going to be the lightweight champion. He fell short in that Dariush fight, but I think this is a step down in competition for him and a step up in competition for Jalen Turner. That doesn't mean Turner can't win. He's an extremely dangerous fighter, has physical advantages over pretty much every lightweight. 7-inch reach advantage, 4 inches taller. You do not see 6'3" fighters make 155 pounds, and he is unique. He's got a really nasty guillotine. He's going to have some power on the feet, but I do expect Gamrot to kind of grapple him into oblivion and eventually tire him out. I like Gamrot by submission or decision at minus 105. Not something I normally bet. Typically, I bet a fighter to win by decision or to win inside the distance. Well, here I'm essentially taking out his standing knockout equity. We're going to bet submission or decision. See a big grappling advantage for him. He attempts 1 takedown per minute at the UFC level. So Gamrot, I think eventually either drowns Turner with cardio in the second or third round or wins a pretty comfortable decision just with top time. So minus 105 there, like it up to about minus 115, currently minus 105 at FanDuel.
What do you think, Billy?
So I definitely see Zerillo's point, and I think were this to be a normal circumstances, I'd be 100% with him. But Gamrot has taken this fight on a little under 2 weeks' notice. Jalen Turner, as Sean pointed out, the tallest lightweight on the roster, also left-handed. So if there's someone that I really want a full camp for to try to rework some habits, come up with a different game plan for, it's a super tall lefty. And Gamrot doesn't have that. If we look at a lot of his takedowns, he goes for what's called a treetop takedown pretty frequently, where you lift your opponent's leg over their head. That's not going to work when someone's already that much taller than you. And Turner's dangerous with his grappling. Because of his length, there's a lot of positions where Gamrot might think he's safe, might think he's unable to be choked, but having those extra long arms can really put him in a dangerous position. So just almost purely based on the short notice nature of this and how high I am on Turner as a prospect, he's actually my favorite underdog of the night. You've seen this line move up a little bit throughout the week. I think it was about plus 150 or so when it was announced. I'm really holding out hope that we can get a plus 200 or so come Saturday, but the plus 172 on FanDuel right now is just fine for me as well.
Yeah, at minus 170, I would have liked Gamrot as a money line bet. Where it is now, I think Turner's probably closer to the play, but I think I would just side with Turner finish props. I would have a difficult time seeing Turner winning enough minutes towards winning a decision, but obviously very violent, very capable of finishing the fight.
I like how Zerillo had to have the last word on that one. This is getting interesting now. We have some differing opinions. But Zerillo, you touched on some props, and I would like to know your favorite prop of the evening.
Yeah, I think Billy and I agreed on this one on our podcast earlier today. Trevin Jones by knockout or TKO plus 260. If you shop around for this prop, you will find numbers as high as plus 325. You will find numbers as low as plus 180. So plus 265, I think that's a fine price to play it. Certainly shop around for the best number that you can find. But this is essentially a fighter in Cody Garbrandt whose chin is shot. It's sad because the skills are still there. His power, his speed, the athleticism. It seems like he still has the tools to win fights and win fights at the highest level in the UFC. But as we saw with the guy 2 weeks ago, OSP, who is shot completely both in terms of his chin and his skill set, you go into some of these fights just hoping these guys don't get hit clean because you expect them to wobble the moment they do. I think this is going to be a low tempo fight. Both of these guys like to stare at each other, but both carry big power. And I think there's going to be a few high variance, explosive moments where it's basically a coin flip who's going to get clipped. So Garbrandt's about plus 115 by knockout. Trevin Jones, much higher, obviously reflective of their prices relative to the money line. But I think it's basically going to be a coin flip when they're swinging. So I'll take Trevin Jones around plus 260 by knockout, but you can get better numbers out there.
All right. And Billy, what would you take?
Yeah, definitely agree with Sean on that one. If I'm going to be flipping coins, I want to be on the side that pays out plus 260 rather than the one that plays out roughly even money. But I'm looking at Ian Gary Machado versus Keenan Song. Gary's one of those super heavy favorites on this card that we're seeing, but I think there's a misunderstanding in the market to a degree that just because someone is significantly better doesn't mean they're necessarily going to finish the fight inside the distance. Gary has fought kind of lesser competition. They're bringing him along pretty slowly. And he had pretty lackluster, I don't want to say boring, but not super impressive decisions in his last 2 wins. And to a degree, Song is a step up in competition versus Darian Weeks, who he fought recently. That one is another plus money prop that you can get, that I think that one should be closer to even money too. As Sean's pointing out, priced, pretty diversely throughout the market, so maybe we can get a better line later, maybe it'll move around. But just because someone is overwhelmingly likely to win doesn't mean they're overwhelmingly likely to get a finish. So you can take that fight to go to the distance. If you want to get real greedy, you could do Gary by decision at slightly better numbers, but plus 230 is enough for me.
And just from a general betting philosophy, when you see a number that is such an outlier relative to the rest of the market, you should be picking that off, because the rest of the market is telling you something should be certain odds. You see one book that's off, they probably haven't adjusted yet. Go ahead and pick off that number. More often than not, it's probably a long-term edge.
Smart. See, that's why you watch this, okay? Now, let's get into the co-main event. We got Jon Jones, despite a 3-year absence from fighting and going up in weight class, favored against Ciryl Gane for the heavyweight title. So, Zerillo, what do you make of this?
Yeah, this is a great fight, really interesting, but typically you do not see the favorite as the fighter with all of the question marks on their side. Jon Jones, obviously one of the best of all time, but moving up here in heavyweight, I'd never love the translation of the power going from light heavyweight to heavyweight and the way that the light heavyweights react when getting hit by a heavyweight for the first time. That said, Ciryl Gane, 240-pound heavyweight, not the biggest hitter either. He's very technical, very accurate with his strikes, precision over power. Not the kind of guy who's going to come in and one-punch knockout Jon Jones like a Francis Ngannou would. But I do think Ciryl Gane has the striking advantages, not only in terms of the technique, but also the speed and the power. And typically when you see a fighter going up in weight, they would have the speed advantage. I don't think that's going to be the case for Jon Jones. And I think Jon Jones is going to need to wrestle him and get on top of Ciryl Gane if he wants to win this fight. Jon Jones by submission at plus 700 around there, plus 600, I think that's fine. I projected that closer to plus 500. I think that's his best path to victory, is to get on top of Gane. Maybe he gets a positional TKO, but grappling is the best path for Jon Jones. An extended kickboxing match, I think, certainly favors Ciryl Gane on the technique, on his movement, his footwork, on his output. So Ciryl Gane, the more active fighter, the fresher fighter. Jon Jones, a lot of question marks coming back at 35. His athleticism may be dissipated after a 3-year layoff. Has PED usage in his past as well, which you certainly can't overlook. So Gane, the money line side for me, like him down to about plus 135, plus 125. It seems like it's hit its peak price around plus 150.
Billy, what are you anticipating?
Yeah, I really like that Zerillo mentioned that we normally don't see the guy with the question marks as the favorite, and he didn't open as the favorite. Jon Jones was plus 150 or so when this fight was announced, and the market has really pushed that to where it's at now. So I'm laying off the money line on that. I think if we could guarantee this is a fully motivated, fully on target Jon Jones, add in the weight, doesn't slow him down too much, he's just a way better fighter. He's probably the best MMA fighter of all time, skill for skill. There's so many questions, and I'm not really willing to pick a side, especially at the price we're seeing. But I really like this one to not go to a decision. That's minus 112. I think Sean said on our podcast the heavyweight average is about 75%. Do I have that one right?
Yeah.
Which is, much better odds than we're getting just for this one. And that's just for any 2 random heavyweights. These are guys who both have finishing ability, both have good enough striking skills they can put each other away. Jones has excellent submissions. Gane has a massive hole in his wrestling defense. And adding all that weight for Jon Jones, I think the biggest issue is going to be the cardio. Just carrying that extra weight through an extra 25 minutes of fighting, that's difficult. It's not the same as his speed might be able to hang on there, at least initially. Probably will have a little bit more power. But that's going to wear on him over the course of 25 minutes. So a late stoppage from Gane here wouldn't surprise me, nor would Jones just ragdolling him in the wrestling early and put him out early. So
Billy, one thing I want to ask, though, because we did talk about this offline, specifically at FanDuel, the under 4.5 is plus 124, and I believe the fight ends inside the distance minus 112. You prefer the under 4.5, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for grabbing that one. And it depends on, what you're seeing in the market or what time you're looking and stuff, because these have all moved around. But if you can get under 4.5, you're cutting off 2.5 minutes for 30-ish cents of odds. That's definitely a better line. Thank you for pointing that one out.
Yes, thank you. And fair enough. This is such an intriguing fight. Reminder, you can track the main event bets and all of our UFC bets in the Action app. And if you have an account at FanDuel, you can click on any bet in the Action app. It'll take you right to the FanDuel app with that bet preloaded. No more having to switch apps, log in, find the market, and bet you want. Now, placing your wager is just one step. It takes 2 seconds. This is a feature only available for Action users, so be sure to take advantage right after the show. And it's the moment you've been waiting for, our best bets of the night. Zerillo, which bet are you most confident in for UFC 285?
Dricus 2+C to win inside the distance, depending on the book that you bet it at. It might say by TKO, knockout, or submission. It's listed differently in different markets, but 2+C to win by finish. Again, another bet that, depending on the book, you could find the odds all over the place between -110, -135. That is a pretty big discrepancy. Certainly find the best available number. But I like the matchup for him. I think similar to Derek Brunson's last matchup against Jared Cannonier, I think that showed us a lot actually about Brunson's current state, his current athleticism. At age 39, he has about 6 or 7 minutes of cardio. He might be able to get 1 or 2 takedowns, but after that, he's really going to start to tire. He does not get submissions. He has power, and Duplessis runs in with his head up, so maybe he gets clipped. But beyond that, I think this is Duplessis' fight to lose. And I think with the way Brunson gets so tired in those final 9 minutes of the fight, he's very likely to get finished. You actually saw his corner throw in the towel as he was getting beaten in the second round by Jared Cannonier last time. So I think a couple of takedown denials by Duplessis. Brunson's going to be completely gassed. I like Duplessis to finish this fight in the second or third round. Wouldn't be surprised if it comes earlier, but I think Derek Brunson nearing the end of the line at age 39.
Billy, your best bet?
Yeah, Amanda Hebus, she's -120 or so on the money line, moved around a little bit. So I'm going to do something I normally don't like to do, which is MMA math. We all know that just because fighter A beats fighter B and then B beats C doesn't mean A is going to beat C, right? But Amanda Hebus is fighting is fighting Vivian Araújo. They've both fought Caitlin Chookagian recently, both lost to her. Hebus took her to a split decision where Araújo lost a unanimous decision, pretty clear one. That's not enough for me in and of itself. But Hebus is also 7 years younger and is probably getting better and continuing to get better since that fight. Araujo's 36. We probably have seen the best days behind her. So if we're looking at results against a common opponent where one fighter looked better, and that's the fighter that we're expecting to show more improvements as we move forward, that's definitely the side I want to be on. That was also her first fight at 125. I think she's going to do a little bit better as she puts on some size, as she figures out the division a little bit. It's a little bit of a scary one because Hebus, being so small for the division, kind of always looks like she's getting hit harder than she really is. But the grappling advantage is massive. She's a black belt in both judo and BJJ. So at -120, I'll take that. I'd play it down to about -135.
You make a compelling case. Now, on FanDuel, of course, you can also put together a parlay for UFC 285. Zerillo, walk me through what you guys came up with.
Yeah, so we talked about the 2 final fights, the over 3.5 in the co-main event between Valentina Shevchenko and Alexa Grasso. We like that fight to be more competitive than the money line suggests and to extend a little bit, maybe not get the full 5 rounds, but at least get 7.5 minutes from the end. The under 4.5 rounds in the main event, better price on the +124 on the under 4.5 than it is on the fight to end inside the distance. Depending on where you're betting it, you may get plus money on the fight to end inside the distance. That would be a fine option as well. The fight we have not talked about is Bo Nickel against Jamie Pickett. Bo Nickel, likely future middleweight champion, making his UFC debut. There's people out there who think he could beat the current middleweight champion, Alex Pereira, right now, just barely based on stylistic matchups and his grappling. Maybe he could beat Izzy Adesanya as well based on that stylistic matchup. But this kid has under 62 seconds of fight time in each of his 3 professional fights. He's not fought much. He's very impressive, and Jamie Pickett does not have much to offer other than pushing him against the cage. I know the under 1.5 at -320 is very chalky. If you're going to bet this fight, though, I think that's how you do it. Maybe he extends the fight a little bit, trying to strike, show some stuff off on the pay-per-view, but the quickest path to a title is to impress. He's not letting this fight go more than 7.5 minutes. Bo Nickel, the under 1.5 rounds. I think that's just an easy parlay piece if you're looking to have some action on the fight. I made the fight -800 to end inside the distance, so still getting less than half of that -800 essentially. I don't think it's a minus EV play to lay that -320 to parlay.
Real quick on Nickel, there's a very good chance he finishes in his UFC debut as the heaviest favorite of any UFC fight ever. I believe it was like -2,200 was the previous record, and he's right around there. making his UFC debut. So the hype is out of control on him, but it's well deserved in this fight.
And he's about minus 170 for a submission, plus 260 for knockout. Typically with these huge favorites, if you're going to have some degenerate action on the fight, just take their finish prop that is higher odds. The less likely finish prop, that's generally where you're going to find the value relative to the market. But more often than not, there's no value. It's completely sucked out at a 95% implied favorite.
Yeah, when you get the lines that crazy, like we're getting into, Bo Nickel could slip on a banana peel on the way to the cage and cost you your bet territory at the percentage chance that he is. So, but yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Very good chance that he's the most heavy favorite ever in a UFC fight on Saturday.
You just have to imagine, based on fouling your opponent, injury, there's a certain 3-4% chance that you could lose any fight just based on bad luck. So it's, factoring that in, there's no value on the fight.
Well, I like how Billy used the term, the hype is out of control. I think that describes UFC 285 on the whole. Billy Zerillo, thanks so much for the insight.
Absolutely.
And enjoy Saturday night, guys. A reminder that the weigh-in is presented by FanDuel. If you're gonna bet on UFC 285, FanDuel is the place to do it. Right now, new customers can get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets. If your first bet doesn't win, bet on who will win, how they'll win, when the fight will end, and so much more. Exclusively on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So make sure you tune into the fights Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. See how the guys did with their picks. And just so you know, on the Action Network app, you can watch and track the bets you like at the same time. It's pretty nifty. I highly recommend. Good luck once again, and thanks for watching The Weigh-In.